Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, what I wanted to do is go through the Zana mods that are going to be available during patch 3.9, the Metamorph League, and give you a bit of a sense as to my thoughts as to how important the Zana mods will be. So first up, if you're not familiar with Zana mods, what they are is a way that you can both experience some of the content that was added in early leagues in Path of Exile. There's a whole swathe of Path of Exile's history from Anarchy, the league that I started playing in, all the way through to Legion, which was just ended 3 months ago. The main role that they play is letting you experience these past leagues in some form, and also to stack your maps full of extra monsters at the expense of using some currency to do so, specifically Chaos Orbs to do so. However, the best use of Zana mods is to strategically choose ones that synergize with sextant modifiers, prophecies, and map mods when you're running maps. So for a bit of an example, this is a strategy that's no longer possible in the Metamorph League, but in Blight it was popular to combine the sextant modifier. Now you can't really target this sextant modifier just when it rolled on a map. This sextant modifier said the first 10 possessed enemies killed drop a gilded scarab. Obviously potentially very lucrative if you can get lots of possessed enemies onto a map, and you used to do that by combining the Warband Zana mod, which is not available in this league, which would add anywhere from 6 to 12 quite weak unique enemies onto a map, and the Possessed Foe Prophecy, which caused every unique monster in a map to come pre-enchanted by a ghost. This combination could easily get you 10 Gilded Scarabs from one map. Very, very, very lucrative, but it's one of those things where you needed all the three parts to come together. You needed the Warbands mod, you needed the Possessed Foe Prophecy, and you needed the Sextant modifier. That synergy created an opportunity. And some of these Zana mods are good on their own, others are good because they create such an opportunity. So, you may want to look for other opportunities to find synergies like these. For example, the map mod Otherworldly, which causes slaying enemies close together to have a 13% chance to attract monsters from beyond. This mod will synergize well with the Legion or Domination Zana mods, which put lots of extra monsters in a map in one place. Or it synergizes really well with the Beyond Zana mod, which is returning this league, for even more chances to spawn insane amounts of monsters. And also sometimes just use a Zana mod without these extra synergies. In the Blight League, it was very popular to just use Harbinger on pretty much every map that you ran, because Harbingers added lots of monsters to the map and dropped extra currency as well. And in some economies, this will be worthwhile. Also, sometimes you're going to want to use some of these for challenges. Anyways, there's a couple of things that are missing from the challenges that have been around in recent leagues. I'll get to them later. But first up, let's go through what we've got. Firstly, 8% increased quantity of items found in this area. This is the bread and butter. This is what you get for opening a map in your own map device without using a Zana mod. Because you only get this when you don't use a Zana mod, it costs nothing. There will be an opportunity cost to using any of the other Zana mods. So let's say you use Essence, you no longer get this 8% quantity bonus. This mod will not start at 8%. It'll be 8% when you've pretty much finished the Conquerors of the Atlas story. We don't know yet how far you need to get through it, but my personal prediction is that it will be when you get your 30-second Watchstone, which means that you've done all of the Conquerors content up to, but not including, the final boss. However, I could very well be wrong on that. You might get access to it earlier, and we're just going to have to find out next week. I suspect that the number of Watchstones you have will correlate pretty cleanly to the percentage bonus that you get here, and this is just your baseline. You get this when you're not using a Zana mod. Next up we have Fortune Favors the Brave. You'll probably get this really early, and in my opinion it's not very useful. It picks one of the available mods at random, including ones you haven't yet unlocked, so Essence, Anarchy, Domination, Bloodlines, Nemesis, Beyond, and Legion. We'll discuss all of those later. And it can be good in theory, except you can't pick a mod that synergizes with your map. So you're sort of stuck with whatever you get. It's kind of disappointing to use Fortune Favors the Brave on a map, and then realize you're looking at the map and think, gee, it would be amazing if Beyond would it be picked for this, because everything about this map would be perfect if only it had Beyond. And then you go Fortune Favors the Brave and you wind up getting Legion instead. Fortune Favors the Brave might be useful for challenges. I think that's the only time you should use it. Next up we have Essence. Essence, the last time it was a league, that it was a Zana mod, added 3 Essence packs. This can be pretty solid if and only if a couple of Essences are in very high demand. I don't think this will be the case in the Metamorph League, however. The Blight content, even though it's going to be rarer than it was in Blight League, just adds so many Essences into the economy that I think that there'll be a slight oversupply of them. So for that reason, Essence isn't such a great option. It also doesn't have any time-worn uniques that become unlocked by using the Zana mod. We'll get to those a bit more when we talk about Nemesis. We have the Anarchy option next. This adds 2 Rogue Exiles to a map, which in my opinion is a pretty terrible waste of 2 Chaos Orbs and 8% quantity. There are 4 time-worn uniques that are linked to this league: Chevron's Revelation, Vol's Devotion, Doresso's Salute, and Gifts from Above. Some of these are quite useful. Vol's Devotion is something that is build enabling, although sort of out of favour at the moment, and Doresso's Salute is a pretty solid option for some builds. However, these are not particularly rare. There are other ways of getting them, and they're just not in much demand. For that reason, I'm going to counsel you to mostly not use the Anarchy mod. You might occasionally find a specific use for it, but generally speaking, I don't think it's very good. Next up we have Domination. This adds 3 shrines onto a zone and also has 7 pretty solid time-worn uniques. So when I say a time-worn unique, these are uniques that were added during one of these temporary leagues and were intended to be just a short-term addition to the game. And as a result, they were pretty common during those leagues, or some of them were at least, but they've been made much rarer since. So Beric's Grip, Beric's Pass, Beric's Respite, the Taming, Blood of the Karui, Lavinia's Spirit, and the Gull are the time-worn uniques that are linked to Domination League. These are they all have some niches, especially I like Lavinia's Spirit, but all of them have a niche, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're particularly expensive items. Now, the thing that's useful with Domination though, the 3 shrines that it adds, not only are there 3 shrines, but each shrine is surrounded by a massive, massive pack of monsters. People during actual Domination League itself did a bit of testing and found that those monster packs add a lot more monsters than would normally otherwise be in the map. And so that's actually the reason you might consider using Domination on a map. It's not so much because of the shrines, it's not so much because of these items, they're just little bonuses if they drop, especially the ones that are okay. But the reason that you'd run it is because it just puts a lot more monsters onto your map. And so if, for instance, your map has 800 monsters on it without Domination, it might go up to 900 with Domination. And if you can still clear it in the same time, then suddenly that's like 12.5% more loot per hour. Of course, you are spending an extra 3 Chaos Orbs every map that you open. You got to balance it out. Maybe that's worth it, maybe it isn't. You'll just have to work that out for yourself. Pro tip though, usually it will be. Next up, you have Bloodlines. Bloodlines is similar to Domination in that it adds monsters to a map. It also adds a small difficulty factor. Every single magic monster in the zone will have a Bloodlines pack modifier. So these are those pack modifiers like Flamebearers that about 1 in 3 packs of magic monsters have normally. That'll be up to 100% in Bloodlines. Additionally, there'll be 3 extra packs of magic monsters on the map. This used to be such a good mod that everyone felt they had to run it. It has been nerfed twice since then, and the first nerf made it still a strong choice, but the second nerf was really severe. Consequentially, my attitude towards the Bloodlines mod is that it's probably not worth it anymore. There's certainly no chase items that come out of Bloodlines from the time-worn uniques, and adding 3 packs of magic monsters, whilst it's okay, magic monsters are a lot of the loot in a map, it's just not enough to warrant losing the 8% increased item quantity and feeding in 3 Chaos Orbs every time. There is, however, one exception, and that is early league when maps are more expensive. At that point, you may want to use Bloodlines on your higher tier maps. Next up we have Nemesis. Now, when we're talking about time-worn uniques, Nemesis is the sort of the god, the lord, the savior, the alpha, the omega, everything. Nemesis has the most important item in the game as a Time 1 unique, and that is Headhunter. Headhunter is a belt that has the very, very bustedly overpowered line on it, that when you kill a rare monster, you gain its mods for 20 seconds. It is essentially, it's a slight exaggeration to say that it's 20 seconds of God mode, but it's only a slight exaggeration. Your character, because a lot of the monsters have extremely powerful mods, like a Haste Aura that gives everyone in range 50% increased movement speed and attack speed, or Soul Eater, which is just the most powerful of all the mods there. Basically, all of these mods are super powerful because they need to be to make monsters different to each other. They're not designed for players to have them, and many of them are as powerful as, say, 5 or even 10 passive tree nodes. For that reason, Headhunter is a ridiculously powerful chase item. It's also ridiculously expensive in leagues, and it's also ridiculously rare. The various ways that you can get it. There are a number of divination cards that are related to the Headhunter belt, and you can't really orient to getting those through the Nemesis mod. They're just alternate ways of getting a Headhunter. What Nemesis lets you do is use Chance Orbs to turn a random leather belt potentially into Headhunter. Very rare, but it can happen, and a lot of players will spend thousands, even tens of thousands of Chance Orbs over a league trying to do just this. Additionally, in conjunction with a Shaper belt, you can potentially get a Headhunter that is Shaper influenced. These are much more expensive because they can be used in conjunction with a unique item, the Eternity Shroud. Finally, Nemesis does add a small number of rare monsters onto a map. And also, it lets you use Ancient Orbs as an alternate way to get a Headhunter as well. So you can take any belt in there into one of these maps, open up a map, any map with a Zana mod for Nemesis, and if you use an Ancient Orb, you have a chance of turning that unique belt into a Headhunter. All these chances are pretty slim, but they add up to making the Nemesis mod particularly important for the league-wide economy. Even if you're not someone that's likely to acquire a Headhunter in a league, it's worth knowing that Chance Orbs and Orbs of Scouring and Shaper Leather Belts will be more expensive than normal because this mod exists. Next up we have Beyond. Now Beyond is only worth it on hugely dense maps because at 5 Chaos it's quite a high cost. What Beyond does is it acts as an unusual form of pack size multiplier. The league has three quite bad Time 1 items, which I haven't kept open because they were that bad. But the key thing that it does, every time that you kill a monster, there is a 13% chance that it will drop a little reddish ball of goo on the ground. Get 4 of these balls of goo in one place, and what will happen is that a mini-boss encounter will spawn. This will be a rare monster and 3 magic monsters. These extra monsters drop loot. Additionally, these will drop a tier 2 pile of goo on the ground. Get 4 tier 2 piles of goo on the ground in a close location to each other, and they will spawn a Beyond boss, which will be a unique monster. These are quite a bit more dangerous than most of the monsters on a map. They're more dangerous than Rogue Exiles, but not as dangerous as some of the more recent bosses that have been added to maps. They're generally pretty easily beaten by experienced players, but can be terrifying very early in the league. However, they will drop monsters, but most importantly, all these extra monsters that you're generating give XP. Beyond as a league mod is huge because it allows you to get a lot. It allows you to basically turn your excess Chaos Orbs into additional experience points. This can make mapping competitive with Purified Breachstones and the Domain of Timeless Conflict as a way of getting XP at the top end for the very most powerful players. And whilst 5 Chaos Orbs a map might seem steep, it's a lot less steep than paying 100 Chaos Orbs at a time for instance, access to a single portal into a Chaela's Purified Breachstone. Beyond also works very well with Scarabs that multiply loot. Because it's putting so many more monsters onto a map, it'll make your Diviner's Scarabs or Cartographer's Scarabs or the new Shaper or Elder Scarabs even better than they usually are. Also works very well with concentrated packs of monsters. Things like Harbinger Scarabs are very good in conjunction with Beyond, and so are Harbinger Sextants, so are Legions. But most importantly, Beyond synergizes with itself. Beyond on a map synergizes very, very well with Beyond on the Zana map device. Suddenly, you have 26% chance to get a pile of red goo when you kill a monster, and that is a lot. That will add up quickly. You'll get more than twice as many packs of monsters spawning, more than twice as many bosses, and as a result, much more of an increase to your XP. Last up we have Legion. Legion has only just been added as a Zana mod for the first time this league, and one thing that's very important to note with it is that splinters are better on higher tiers. So if you're running Legion on low tier maps, you'll find yourself mostly getting the lower value Val splinters, Kauri splinters, and Eternal Empire splinters. On the flip side, you start running it on high red tier maps, you'll start getting a lot of Templar and Maraketh splinters as well. You'll still get more of the common three, but it seems like by tier 16, you get about equal representation of the 5 factions. So yeah, that's important, and as a result, you want to consider the Legion mod as a tremendous bonus loot explosion that only is worth doing if your character is capable of dealing with the absolute mayhem that you get when you release an entire Legion monolith at once. Legions scale explosively in my experience with pack size and map quantity. So save this for your 8 mod tier 16 maps and use it alongside Scarabs for even better value. A Legion is also very map dependent. Legions are much better in wide open maps like Dunes, Atoll, Glacier, Fields, and City Square. They are very lucrative. They have been nerfed since the Legion League, but what went live in Legion League was absolutely absurd. You know, you'd find that people would just run a map, go to the monolith, do the monolith, then portal out and just start the next map, because there was no point completing the map. The Legion monolith gave 5 times as much loot as the rest of the map combined. Legions are much better in wide open maps, so you want to use these in Dunes, Atoll, Glacier, Fields, City Square, and other maps that have that sort of topography. They are much worse in maps that are corridor based. So Toxic Sewers is an example of one of the worst types of maps to put Legions on, and you should never do that. Likewise, towers are pretty bad. There's just not enough space for the Legion monsters to spawn. Now let's have a quick look at what is missing, because the biggest shakeup is that Zana's mods that modify the tier of maps are gone. These used to be something that early in a league would allow a player that could get ahead on Zana's old quest chain to very quickly amass a pool of high tier maps by turning their tier 10 maps that drop for them into tier 15 maps. So you would put let's say a tier 10 Dunes map in the Blight League. You'd put that into the portal, into the map device, and you would select shape a tier 1 to 10 map. That would cost you 6 Chaos Orbs. The tier 10 Dunes map would be consumed, and 6 portals would be created to a randomly rolled tier 15 Dunes map. This might seem steep, 6 Chaos Orbs is a lot, but it worked out to be an incredibly efficient way to spend your currency, because it meant that you would end up with basically getting access to a tier 15 map for the cost of 6 Chaos plus a tier 10 map. And early in a league, a tier 15 map might be 25 Chaos. So for that reason, you could then clear this tier 15 map, get yourself all the maps that it dropped, and then sell them to other players. Essentially, what these map mods did was provide a way very early in the league for the top 2 or 3% of players to really build an unassailable amount of wealth early in the league by selling maps. This is gone. I'm actually quite happy with that. It removes one of the most powerful wealth concentrating effects in the game, and means that the early map drops will be less concentrated in the hands of the top players. Or basically, top players will just get less of them. The other thing that's missing is 2 modifiers that were important in the past. Ambush is gone. Ambush provided a bunch of strongboxes on a map for a few Chaos Orbs. Wasn't very good if you just used it by itself, but in conjunction with sextant modifiers, it could be insane. It's gone, and the only way is to add sextants to a map. To add strongboxes to a map now. There's a couple of sextants that do it. There's a couple of prophecies that do it, and there's a scarab that does it. But you just can't quite stack as many at once as you used to be able to. And the other thing that's missing is Harbinger. Harbinger was an incredibly powerful option. In fact, I'd go as far as to say during Blight League, it was almost mandatory to run Harbinger on your maps. Harbingers would provide a huge amount of extra monsters into a map, and once you killed them, they would potentially drop maps. They would also drop currency shards. The absence of Harbinger as an option in the Zana mods is going to mean that there'll be less access to the Beachhead unique map, and there is going to be less access to Ancient Orbs, Annulment Orbs, slightly less access to Exalted Orbs, although most of those drop as orbs rather than as shards, and there will be less of the Harbinger's Orbs. This is going to be moderately significant, I think, overall. Those shards were the main source of Orbs of Annulment during Blight League, and in many other leagues as well. So for that reason, I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that Orbs of Annulment will be quite expensive next league. However, Ancient Orbs, whilst they'll be rarer than they were, I think that there's more a case with Ancient Orbs that player demand for them is based upon the price of Headhunter. So depending upon where Headhunter ends up in price, that's going to determine how expensive Ancient Orbs are, and players just won't buy them if they get beyond a certain point. Harbinger also was an extreme source of drops of extra maps because it just put so many monsters onto a map. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. The key takeaways for this are that Nemesis is available. This means that all of the sources of getting a Headhunter are available in the game. Beyond is back, and Beyond is insane for players that are running extremely densely packed monsters, maps full of monsters. If your character is way too powerful for tier 16 maps, then Beyond will give you explosive XP and explosive currency generation in them. And Legion is, I think, too powerful to ignore. However, Legion is only going to be good on the highest tiers of maps. Legion produced so much currency and so much wealth in its own league that I think the Zana mod is going to be very, very impactful. The last thing that's missing is Breach as well. I'll just quickly mention that Breach Splinters, I think, drop from enough other sources that it's not going to matter that much. Anyways, if you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. I hope you have a good one.